Uh-oh. All right. There we go. Hello, everyone. Welcome in. Welcome, welcome, welcome. Hope you guys are all enjoying your wonderful Tuesday night. I'm certainly doing my best to enjoy mine. 1 second, I'm going to be sharing this out. I would appreciate it if you all would do the very same. Got a lot to talk about. Of course, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez needs to be called out. Because even when she's trying to correct herself, she manages to mess everything up. And then we're going to get into the actual policies of what she's been advocating for. And for her to try to conflate these with being morally anything but corrupt would be absolutely 100% dishonest and disingenuous. And, just speaking to her rhetoric and what she has advocated for. She has displayed that she has no morals. She has no... all she is here for, all that she wants to do is to have more control over the people and to demand from them how they need to conduct themselves. And we will get all over into this as the time comes on, as the show continues. So thank you guys all for joining in tonight. I am Mr. Murica, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. I want to thank you guys, of course, for coming in, for enjoying your time with me on this wonderful Tuesday night, Tuesday the 8th, which means that tonight is the night where President Trump also will be making his Oval Office address to the entire nation. And this right here, ladies and gentlemen, this right here has gotten the entire world into a tizzy. Maybe not the entire world, but at least the mainstream media world into a tizzy. We've got different members of the media saying we shouldn't even be covering this. We should not be trying to portray what the president is trying to project out to the people. And so we have we need to do our due diligence and ensure that we don't provide it straightforward to the people, but instead we'll provide it to them after the fact if anything of value is said. Just that next level of thinking to be a mainstream media person of not giving you the entire discussion and then being able to handle it on the fly or be able to provide it to you and then afterwards make corrections if there are any needed. But to be on the left, to be in the media means you never have to say you're sorry, and certainly means that you never have to be factually correct. As long as you can claim to be morally right, that's all that matters. That's all that matters to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. And if you don't believe me, I will play her words for you yourself. Let me just pull this on up for you guys. Here it is. So, she's doing an interview with Anderson Cooper, and during the interview on 60 Minutes, they brought up the fact that she got 4 Pinocchios from the Washington Post about being factually inaccurate on things. To remind you guys of what was said was basically that the Pentagon's massive accounting fraud was exposed. And so there was a numerical value of $21 trillion. And so she says $21 trillion of Pentagon financial transactions could not be traced or documented or explained. 21 trillion in Pentagon accounting errors, Medicare, 21 trillion for that, and Medicare for all cost 32 trillion. That means 66% of Medicare for all could be funded already by the Pentagon, and that's before our premiums. Ooh. But, when you dive down into that, it is a gross misrepresentation of how things work, right? Because they're talking about how money is allocated to and fro, and everything else. And so once you actually look into this any further than what she has, you would understand that it is certainly worthy of those 4 Pinocchios. But nonetheless, I'm going to provide you guys. Maybe we're too stupid to think for ourselves. Maybe, just maybe. But nonetheless, I'm going to play you guys her words. This is after Mr. Anderson Cooper from CNN on 60 Minutes asks her specifically about the 4 Pinocchios.
If people want to really blow up one figure here or one word there, I would argue that they're missing the forest for the trees. I think that there's a lot of people more concerned about being precisely factually and semantically correct than about being morally right.
Okay, so what she's saying is that people are more worried about being factually correct than about being morally right. Let's talk about morals when it comes to something such as universal basic income. Let's talk about morals when it comes to something like Medicare for all. Let's talk about morals when it comes to the new Green Deal, and we'll dive into that deal a little bit as well tonight. Let's dive into the policies that she's been advocating for. So right now, the government is spending about about a little over $4 trillion every year. Right? It's an exorbitant amount of money that is being spent through the hands of the men and women in D.C. So, right now they're collecting their revenue is sitting right around $3.6 trillion. So we're spending more than what we're receiving in. That's a huge fundamental issue for anyone who knows anything about economics. And despite the fact that she has a degree in economics, I'm not very certain that she actually was paying attention. I'm not sure what she was doing. She might have been sliding those drinks to herself, but whatever it was that she was doing when she was getting her economics degree, I don't think that it was really of value. And so when you understand that, you understand that we're already spending more than what we're receiving in, and you go ahead and you advocate for more money to be allocated, for more money to be spent out, such as almost or roughly around $40 trillion over 10 years, you would have to explain where this money comes from. Now, she thinks it's morally correct to take more money from people just because they have it. Now, I don't think that if you have one bicycle, I get to steal your bicycle. I don't think because you have 100 bicycles, I get to steal your bicycle. I don't think because you have 1,000 bicycles means I get to steal your bicycle, right? I don't have an entitlement to what you have. I don't have an entitlement to what you make. If you willfully make a transaction with me, if you voluntarily give it over to me, then I can accept those things, but I have no moral grounds in order to take these things from you. And so whenever you see somebody like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, who I was very happy to tag her, if you guys see it on Twitter, if you guys see it on Periscope, if you guys see her advocating for this, just understand that she says she wants to make new standards, right? If you have more than 100 bikes, then she's going to say, you make another bike and I'm going to take that bike. I'm going to take from you if you have more than others. She believes that it's morally correct, morally right, morally on the high ground to take from people just because they have it. Now, I would say that this would be morally corrupt, right? To think that because somebody has something and you want it, that you get to take it. Last I checked, thievery, stealing, extortion, especially when using force, is not morally correct on anyone's grounds. So for her to come out and argue that she is worried about morality, that she's worried about being morally right, not necessarily on topic or consistent with what she has said in the past. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, once again, she should be receiving the 4 Pinocchios anytime she basically opens her mouth, because that is all that we are getting from her is lies, 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 and lies, and lies. Now, during this interview, and I'll continue on from what she was saying, right? She was saying that they're more worried about being factually correct, about being precise, and about being semantically correct than about being morally right. And she continues.
But being factually correct is important.
It's absolutely important. And whenever I make a mistake, I say, okay, this was clumsy. And then I restate what my point was.
Okay. So she says, whenever I make a mistake, I will gladly, say that was clumsy of me and then correct it. So along the lines of when she said, look, there's 3 chambers of Congress. Sorry, I got that wrong. There were 3 chambers of government. That's also very wrong. And so she decided that now it's a time to explain her vast knowledge and wisdom of government. And so she says that those 3 chambers of government are as follows. The executive branch. Wow, she got one right. And the House and Senate. It's amazing. It's amazing to be elected to to one of the branches of government to be elected to the House of Representatives, part of the judicial branch, and to not understand that there's a third branch of the government called, sorry, she's a part of the legislative branch. See, look at that. I'm going to correct myself and it's going to be proper. And then she entirely forgets that there's a third branch called the judicial branch. That has the Supreme Court on it. So she should probably go ahead and do a little bit more research before she starts opening her mouth. But nonetheless, the left, the media cannot get enough of her. And I'm glad for people like Anderson Cooper that are willing to push back on her and actually advocate for a little bit of honesty from her. And that's what's really needed, right? If you're not a smart person, if you don't understand the topics that you're discussing, it might not be in your best interest to attempt to be the spokesperson for these things. And we'll get into the new Green Deal, because that's certainly one where she has been very adamant and been standing staunchly in favor of. But the facts there just don't work. The truth behind the new Green Deal is just as bad as the three chambers of Congress. And it's truly despicable to see something like this occurring in our country right now. But so just looking at Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, we can tell that anything that she says is, I apologize for that. Anything that she says is an entire joke. It should be taken with a grain of salt. But the problem is that when she speaks, not only is it that the people on the right that are regurgitating this, and whether they're regurgitating what she's saying and attacking it, much like what I've been doing during this show and during a couple recent shows, but they've also been taking inaccuracies. They've been taking quotes from her that she did not say in order to attack her. That doesn't make her look well, and that actually makes yourself look childish. So there's an issue there. But then the left also thinks that she's morally correct without understanding what morality is, without understanding what actual morals are, right? Not to take from somebody else. They think that this is acceptable, and so they regurgitate it as well. They spread the word and they spread the love, and they're like, yes, this is what we need. Take more from the people that make more money than me so that I can live a better life, or because I have this sacred cow here needs to be taken care of. I'm not going to do anything about it, but I'm going to demand that you are forced at the point of gun to do what I tell you to do. And this is one of the things that I recently posted out, was the idea that if you are advocating for a system and that system has no way for you to opt out of it, all you are doing is trying to make more slaves. You're trying to make, whether you want to look at it by percentage, right? If you want to look at it by percentage of how much of your work is turned into slavery, with regards to if you increase the taxes being taken from somebody, then that means that you are doing free work for others. So there's slavery on that regards. Or if as the numbers grow, as more people are affected by this taxation, you are advocating that now more people have the shackles on them. Of course, one of the ideas that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez says and thinks is that people on the lower end, people that are poor, need to be just the recipients. So if they're the recipients, then they are not paying into these things. So she believes in it. She believes heavily in the idea of redistribution of wealth. She believes in the idea of universal basic income or basic income principles, with the idea that if you're not making enough, then it is incumbent upon others within that society to take from their paychecks to provide to others. The inability to actually rationalize this, the inability to find any economist out there, any accredited economist out there that said that this will be good for any nation whatsoever, the inability of finding that just shows you just of how drastic these things would be, just of how catastrophic these terms and conditions would be for any country in which they are implemented in. But nonetheless, she persists because she doesn't understand that stealing is wrong, that taking from one to provide to another is wrong. She doesn't understand the constitutionality of these things because it's been so bastardized over the years by both Republicans and Democrats, by any political party, in order to justify growing the government, and she is just another piece on the chessboard that is continuing to do the same thing. The important thing, the reason why you have to understand Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is so important with today's time is not because she's right, but because she is showing where the country is moving to. She is a radical, self-proclaimed. She is an advocate for absolute control over you and your paycheck. And it's people like this that are a massive detriment to this country. Lucifer loves Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. That's fine. You can love her all you want to. Free market zealotry for the last 30 years has left the American South bankrupt. I would disagree with that idea. I would disagree with that entirely. Sure, there are more people in the South per capita that are on welfare and everything else, but that is not. You are attempting to strawman or oversimplify the situation in order to make it much easier, right? That's exactly what you're doing, and so certainly there's this level of expectation. Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is what happens when the Dollar General becomes the choice that free market zealotry delivered. I would disagree entirely, because if you look at poor areas, if you look at poor countries, historically, right, it wasn't that communism or socialism or democratic socialism, which is just the same thing as socialism. It means that you're voting to shoot yourself in the foot instead of being forced by a dictator. If you look at the poorer areas, what is it that allows them to become richer? What saved South Korea? What saved many nations that were catastrophically poor? Even countries in Africa that were extremely poor 30, 40 years ago. What caused these countries to flourish, to grow, and even socialists and communists that are intellectually honest here in this country right now say that it is imperative that capitalism raise a nation up before they can implement their communism and socialism. Anyone out there will admit this, that is intellectually honest, that capitalism is what enables a country or a nation or a state or a locality to become stronger, to become more prosperous. It is that capitalism. Now, what she is doing and what communists and socialists think is that now is the time. This is the best time to implement it because the free market has been failing because of heavy government regulation, because they don't understand the idea of what free market is versus crony capitalism, for example, to use that term, because they don't understand actually what free markets do. But when you have a governing body limiting you and controlling what the markets are able to provide, and you control so many different aspects of this, you limit the amount of charity that people can do. Maybe not. You're even on principle, you're limiting on how much charity somebody can provide to charities, to donation centers. And so when you understand the basics of it, right, the government intervention, the government regulation, those are the things that have been preventing us from being able to thrive and survive and be as prosperous as we want to be, right? If you want to look back at somebody such as Calvin Coolidge was an amazing president, the 13th president of the United States. And one of the things that he did was he didn't raise taxes. He cut taxes. He cut the subsidies. He wasn't spending money. So the government during the times of his time in office were actual surpluses to the national debt. So he was creating wealth for the nation and actually enabling more people to have transactions and to be able to thrive and survive and to do anything that they wanted to do, so long as it was them doing it. And so so when you understand like the basics of it, you can look at somebody like Calvin Coolidge, arguably the best president that is not spoken about. Regulations are not all bad. I would disagree. when you look at that and you free up a market and you allow them to survive and you allow them to compete against each other, this is where we're going to be getting into the new Green Deal, or the Green New Deal. What Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez is attempting to implement with the New Deal, the Green New Deal, is that she wants to change over time, and she wants to make it to where the nation is 100% on renewable energy. Now, does she consider nuclear power to be renewable energy? Absolutely not. Even though, despite the fact that nuclear energy in 2016 was a major contributor, right, compared to all of the renewable energy in 2018, which was less than 15%, the nation's total electric energy generation in 2016 from nuclear power alone was just under 20%. Just under 20% was created from just 99 commercial reactors. So we have plenty of opportunity for this to be a thriving market, for reactors to be providing these, to provide power to the infrastructure, or not to the infrastructure, but to the power grids around this nation. And they're not only extremely reliable, but they are also effective, efficient, and they do not release, they're not a heavy carbon emitter or anything else detrimental to the environment. It is truly an amazing functioning part of power generation, and it's despicable, it is disgusting, it is reprehensible that she and others that are advocating for the Green New Deal to say that nuclear power is not a viable option. So she wants to move to 100% renewable energy. And I would be honest with you, like, I don't think that there's anyone out there that says that we should not be striving to grow to be 100% off of renewable energy as it becomes effective, as it becomes possible. But it's just not feasible at this time. It is not feasible at this moment for us to be able to do this. Let me pull up a quote. So here's a quote from Nick Loris, an economist at the Conservative Heritage Foundation, and he's spot on with this, right? It's the idea that it's a good plan if you want to fleece taxpayers and ratepayers, because that's what it's going to do if implemented. If renewables could compete on their own, they wouldn't need tax credits or mandates. If you have to mandate its use, it's a good indication that it's not a competitive form of energy. So what this means is that the producers, not the producers, the consumers, so you, the individual, you will be paying more for the same amount of energy. You will be paying more for startups to be able to implement your new solar panels, wind turbines. It doesn't exactly mention if we will be going to hydro energy from the water, which is one of the other large contributors for energy in this country. But if you don't have that, or if you have that, right, being able to maintain those systems and start those up, so you have a very large startup cost there. And then as the technology advances, right, we're going to want to implement that, because these are relatively new systems. They're relatively new new innovations. And so there's much to be desired with these before they are implemented nationwide on a scale that they would like to be seen. So we have to make sure that if you're going to implement this, then we implement it in the way that the market allows. Because if you implement it too soon, the cost will be too high, and then you're having to pay as it grows. If you want to pay for research and development, I disagree with that notion. I think that the market will be able to do that as the demand grows for these markets. But as a whole, right, it's not the government's role was never to dictate how people were functioning in their lives. The government's role was to ensure that they're not infringing upon one person or another one. The problem conservatives will have with populism is it's inherently liberal. Okay. I don't know why I read that one. That one was kind of a worthless comment. Oil companies are heavily subsidized by the taxpayers, and I disagree with that. Texas Blue. I disagree with the idea that anything is being subsidized. I don't think it is the government's role to be subsidizing, which is exactly why I mentioned Calvin Coolidge, somebody who's bringing a surplus into this country by not subsidizing. Even the farmers where his roots came from, he was refusing to provide subsidies for them. And having that understanding, having that as a moral principle, that is not the government's role to prop up or to shut down markets, is what is important. That is how you allow the better markets to survive and new markets to grow. If you get involved, if you infringe upon it, if you create monopolies, and those monopolies that you attempt to create or attempt to prop up, when they fail, you cannot honestly think that just throwing more money at markets is going to make them better, right? There has to be a demand. There has to be a desire there. If you are just saying there has to be a market because we said so, what you're doing is you're not only hurting those markets, you're not only hurting the competitors who would have otherwise been thriving and been providing these services and goods better to the consumer, but you're also forcing the consumers to pay more for less. So on every ground, going back to Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez being morally right versus being factually correct, she is neither morally right nor factually correct when she endorses and advocates for a system like this. It's absolutely 100% despicable, and people need to be called out for this. And actual conversations and actual understanding of these markets are so inherently important, but too many people are too ready just to listen to the CNN talking points or listen to the New York Post or the Washington Post, the New York Times, wherever it is that they're getting these sources from. And instead of doing their actual research on these things and actually looking, hey, how much is renewable energy, how much is it producing right now? How much does it cost right now? How much does it cost per year? How much does it cost for the startup? How much does it cost for this? How much does it cost for that? Being able to understand those and understand that if you instantly have a higher demand because it is now mandated, the supply, when the supply is lethargic because the market will be slower to respond to those demands, you will have a shortage. Whenever you have a shortage, right, much like what we've seen with whenever a natural disaster like a hurricane is coming, people often try to argue against these things, but you have what's called price gouging, where prices go up because there's not enough goods or services for all. So you're getting hurt once again. So there's this level of economic misunderstandings or misrepresentations or just complete, absolute 100% ignorance or malice that is being done on the part of people that support these bills, and it is only to the detriment of the people. It needs to be taken down. People are asking about the marginal tax rates. I disagree 100% with any idea of marginal tax rates. They need to be 100%. They need to be a flat rate. If people really want to advocate for a system, advocate for a policy for departments, then everyone needs to be held accountable for them. If you're not willing to put your own money up for it, if you're not willing to put your wallet on the stand, then is disgusting and reprehensible and morally corrupt for you to advocate for that, to put somebody else's wallet up there. That's called stealing. That's not okay. You learn this when you were in school. You learn this when you were in kindergarten. You don't take from others, and you don't offer up other people's stuff. Lucifer, you can love her all you want to. She's brain dead. I'm not even trying to attack her character, not even trying to attack her as a person, but you can't get this far and have absolutely no understanding of all of these things. And that's where it is. So there's a huge fundamental issue here, and people are not wanting to listen. They're not wanting to listen at all. So we covered Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and to a pretty good amount, right? Everything that she's advocating for, Medicare for all, is unfundable. It is so. The cost of Medicare for all 32 trillion over 10 years. We cannot afford that. She wants to take from everyone, and those numbers are on the low side. Those are conservative numbers. When you look at the nuance within implementing a new department, implementing a new program, right? Even if you guys want to see just of how inaccurate those numbers are, whenever the projections are, whenever you have a CBO or some private third-party entity trying to project out numbers, the numbers are always lower than what they actually are. But you can even argue using the numbers that they provide. But you can look at Obamacare, you can look at Affordable Care Act, and look at the way that they said, look, the prices will go down. No, prices did not go down. Prices continue to climb, and they're still climbing. They're still becoming over and cumbersome to where people cannot afford to get health insurance anymore. They could afford it before. They could afford it before Affordable Care Act was implemented, but now they can no longer. Now they have wives, they have children, they have husbands, they have relatives that live with them that are no longer able to provide for themselves because we have been lied to by the government by saying, if we take care of you, then you'll be able to afford it. And it's just been absolutely 100% dishonest. And to quote another of Calvin Coolidge, another one of his great quotes of his wealth of wisdom was that it would be better to remove bad bills than to enact attempt to enact new good bills, right? It's better to take away the bad things that are happening to a society. It's better to take away the bad things than to try to implement new good things and hoping that you're just going to keep making things better. Because when you look at the trend from DC, whether it's Republican or Democrat, it really doesn't matter. The intent of the bill is not important. It is the implementation and the effects of the bill that is much more important. So when you have something that is failing, such as the Affordable Care Act, such as even COBRA, right, from the Reagan years, when you have things that are involving itself in the market and it's causing prices to go up, you are now effectively refusing to allow people to have health care. You're refusing to allow people to take care of their life, their liberty, and their pursuit of happiness because you decided that it was more important that you have a look-good bill or a feel-good bill rather than actually caring about the people that you're trying to implement it for. So she, with the Medicare for All, obvious disaster there. When it comes to the universal basic income, right? If you make less than X amount of money, then you receive this as a paycheck. The problem is that she's trying to take it from the top and bring it down to the bottom. These are there's nothing that the people on the lower end did to earn or deserve this money, and so the attempt to use some form of gymnastics to explain how this is moral or just is it's lackluster, and it holds no weight. It holds no logic, and it holds no value, and it should be denounced anytime it's brought up. So I really fundamentally looking at everything that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has attempted to implement, advocated for, or helped, it has not been in the interest of America. It's been in the interest of people who who already have their hands out or will be putting their hands out in hopes that somebody else will fill up their hands rather than earning it themselves. I understand that there are a lot of people out there that are incapable of working because of health conditions, or they're incapable of taking care of this person or that person. They're incapable of this, that, and the other. And I understand that there's those issues, and that's why we should be getting the government out of the way to where we can provide for our own. We can provide for our families, right? If you're taxed less, you can provide more for the people around you. If you do not have a 35%, 40%, 50% effective tax rate on your head every year, right? Imagine how much more you can take care of in your own life. Imagine that. But instead, what they do is they take from one to give to another, and it just 100% morally corrupt. Until my taxes don't go to smoking related illness, please stop smoking. So I don't even have health care. I don't have health insurance or anything. So when you say until my taxes don't go to smoking related illness, please stop smoking, you don't get to dictate how I live my life. And so you don't get to dictate how the outcome goes. And so I agree with you on premise, right? On the moral there, right? You shouldn't have to pay for my outcome But if you are, then you should be able to control the input. You should be able to control my life in some regards. But that's not the way that it goes, right? We don't want to actually fundamentally have a system where people are held accountable, but you want to hold people accountable for the outcome. This is disgusting, right? I think you would both agree, or everyone would agree. So it's on that principle, 100%. I am right there with you, man. If you think that people should be responsible for the outcome of others and have no control for the input, then there's really no way to control how much you're spending. Not that you had any control in the begin with. So either everyone has to give up their liberty and their pursuit of happiness for others, or we just keep the system of individual liberty and we remove the unconstitutionalness that is government-ran healthcare. Moving on, the Miss Ruth Bader Ginsburg, has missed her second day in a row at the Supreme Court. They took their seats today, and Chief Justice John Roberts noted Ginsburg's absence when the judges took their seats. She's unable to be present because of the if you guys recall, back around Christmas, she had the surgery on her left lungs in order to get rid of some cancerous nodes. And so she missed her first oral arguments in more than 25 years yesterday, and then she's still recuperating today. There is going to be a point in time where we have to look at Ruth Bader Ginsburg and say, you've done your due diligence, you've done your time. Thank you so much for your service and for all that you've done. You've certainly made waves in this country, and you've certainly made a lot of things better. But it's time. We need to at least have the discussion about retirement. I know that she wants to stick around until after Trump, but eventually it becomes to a point where you are becoming a detriment to the integrity of the Supreme Court. If we only have 8 judges on the panel, or on the bench, if we only have 8 and 8, or 8 people, then you can have 4 and 4 decisions, and then, we're stuck. So there comes a time, and there's obvious justification for the 9 people, is that there needs to be an equalizer. There needs to be a way that we don't have the 2 opinions, right? The for and the against opinions clashing against another. You need to have a tiebreaker. So when she is doing this, when she is obviously recuperating from an intensive surgery, the discussion needs to be held. And you can't hold your own ego or your own value and say, well, I'm gonna be a detriment to the Supreme Court until either A, I die, or B, until Trump is out of office. You become a detriment to the country by doing so. And you guys know me. I'm not even a big fan of Cavanaugh. I don't think that Cavanaugh necessarily was a great pick. I think that he was good for, like what my former guest on here, Laird Miner, talked about, was that he's good for the administrative side of law. He's very good when it comes to Chevron deference, right? And advocating against that, because we don't want to have the ABC departments being able to utilize very vague laws and make them more specific, or expand them and be able to be the judge, jury, and the executioner on these things. But that's a huge issue there in itself, right? And so Judge Cavanaugh is the only administrative judge that we have. Why is that going off? Oh, the Hill. Thank you, Hill. I don't want you. Get out of here. Apologize for that, but nonetheless. So yes, so Kavanaugh is good for that side. He is a strong supporter of the Second Amendment. I'm thankful for that. But when it comes to the Fourth Amendment, when it comes to helping get Affordable Care Act be enacted, when it came to the Patriot Act, he was certainly an issue there. But if he can get another Neil Gorsuch on the line on the bench, will be gold, right? Having somebody that is more of a textualist, having somebody that is more of a constitutionalist, would be a much larger benefit to this country in the long run. And then certainly this is why a lot of advocates of the left who want to either blatantly or as sly as possible undermine the Constitution don't want RBG to be taken out, to be removed from the bench for any reason, is because she's been a devoted dissenter. She has been somebody that back in, 2002 or 2013, I forgot which, but when she was talking to Egypt and they were talking about making a new constitution or making a constitution there, she said, I would not look to the American Constitution. So this is somebody that doesn't agree with the Constitution on principle, on values, and she has worked from being a first and second wave feminist, which I agree with those movements, and she has in some ways moved on to maybe a little bit of the third. What's up, Mookie? And so there are some issues there when it comes to RBG, and it's, but the left has grabbed onto her, and they think that she's working in the best interest of the country, and it's just, I don't want to be entirely inaccurate, but there's certainly some falter there, and we've seen it with previous decisions. We've seen it been on the side of dissenting, even when the Constitution is quite clear. So, it's. The discussion about her future is certainly one that needs to be held now that she is actually becoming somewhat of a detriment to the court itself, right? The highest court in the land. So I'm excited to see that that be brought up. I live in Texas, but Trump only works with having people with very low education levels. I would disagree. Are you saying that Ben Carson has a very low education level? I don't think that would be accurate at all, and I think that would be somewhat racist. Would you not agree with that, Thomas? That, Ben Carson is low education level? I think Ben Carson is one of the smartest guys in the administration, but he has a high education level, and there's plenty of others within the administration and plenty of people around the entire surrounding the administration as well that have been appointed by President Trump that have been extremely intelligent, that have been extremely wise, and so I think that your bias is showing, and certainly you've just like what Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez said, you lack the factual evidence behind that, and that's fine, but I wouldn't want to be conflated with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. If you don't like it either, then I would recommend getting better arguments. But nonetheless, we can continue on. So tonight we have President Trump talking at 9 p.m. He's going to be... oh, no, I didn't want to close that one. He's going to be talking to the entire country. He's going to be talking from the Oval Office. And what we're going to see is him talking about the wall. We're going to see him talking about the wall, the government shutdown. What we should expect is he's going to probably bring up DACA, so bringing back the deal that he had proposed before. We may see him use the $670,000, which was proposed by the Democrats during the last big hubbub, or we may see him bring back the $1.8 million, which he proposed and was refused. We'll see that being brought up. We'll see him, of course, ask for the $5.7 trillion, or billion dollars. I apologize, $5.7 billion for funding for the wall. He's going to be blaming the Democrats for the shutdown, and honestly, I think that you can't blame one side on this, right? So Democrats are not willing to concede to the Republicans, and Republicans are not willing to concede to the Democrats. You can't blame one side. It is obviously a two-party system, and both parties are complacent in obstructing the government on these grounds. Am I still streaming to you guys? I see you guys' comments have stopped off. Uh-oh. All right, I've still got 10 of you guys. I don't know how many people have been in here though. All right, looks like I'm still talking. So, nonetheless, so we'll see him talking about all of this and what has come from this. And since he has brought this up, is that there are members of the media that do not want to cover this. They don't want this to be aired on their networks, and they say, "Look, the President Trump is a complete liar, and if he's a complete liar, then there's no opportunity. There's no reason. There's no logical explanation as to why we should be projecting this out to the people." So what they're doing is they're trying to take a preconceived notion and say that no matter what he says will not be a benefit to the country, and so they would like to play the censorship on this. Now, I want you guys to know this, right? Because as much as I hate the mainstream media, one of the media's job is not to portray a narrative, not to give you an agenda, but to give you the facts and give you the situation. So what would be a better way for the media to handle this than to allow them to come on? It's good now? All right. What we should see from the media is the media should play it all out. Allow the president to reach the nation, to talk to the nation from the Oval Office, and to reach all the people that want to check it out. And then once they do, right, if they have issues with what he said, they can willingly and they can forcefully tell you about their views and their opinions on these situations after the fact. If they don't, if they actually follow through with the idea that I am not going to allow this to come onto my network, do you really think this is going to help their already hurting ratings? Of course not. This is going to hurt them. So it would be in the media's best interest to actually play this out. I'm really fundamentally confused as to why the comments are not working on this anymore. Let me pull this up. I wish there was a way I can refresh that. But so the media, in their best interest, would be to sit there, allow the president to talk. If they have reasons to dissent or reasons to disagree with what he said, they can take the time. They are the media to fact check it and then to release the facts if they are wrong. But what we've seen from the past is they take a little bit of the information from President Trump and they have projected it out and they said, look, this is absolutely wrong, and then they don't back it up, which is of course distasteful. Or they say it's a dog whistle. The dog whistle is my favorite thing that they do. They say, look, this is just a dog whistle for white races. This is just a dog whistle to say, oh, illegal immigrants coming across the border, there are some that are rapists, some that are gang members, and everything else. They try to project this out. And in the end thing is, the truth behind this all is that's not accurate. It's not. It's just simply not accurate at all. Because there are illegal immigrants in this country that are rapists. There are illegal immigrants in this country that are gang members. There are illegal immigrants in this country that have committed murder, whether gang affiliated or not. These are all truths. Now, if you want to minimize it or if you want to expand it and exaggerate it, right, that is incumbent upon whichever party it is. But the mere notion that this is not occurring or that this is not an issue, I would hate for somebody to say it's not an issue when somebody is killing another and then try to say, well, on this moral ground, you have to pay attention to this situation or that situation. Obviously, killing people is a bad thing, and it should be denounced by both sides. Sadly, right now, what the Democrats have done is they flipped 180 degrees. So they just years ago, right, we have video proof of Barack Obama, of Hillary Clinton, of Chuck Schumer, of Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders. They were all talking about being in favor of shutting down illegal immigrants, of fighting back against illegal immigrants, of holding people accountable for these things, of building up borders, of building up barriers, of actually fortifying the sovereignty of our nation. And now what they have done is they said, I don't want to uphold this anymore. I don't want to hold this anymore because now there's a Republican in office. And so they don't want them to get the win, and they didn't want to do anything when they were in power themselves. So we have this huge fundamental issue, and really I really want people to think about this, right? President Obama shut down the government for, what was it, 16 days, 13 days to get Affordable Care Act passed. He shut it down, right? During those times, do you think that he could have been fighting for a border wall if this was something that he was promising, not only on the campaign, not only during his re-election, and was speaking about it on multiple times? Do you think that this could have been done during then? Of course it could have. But it is just merely projection on both sides. It is merely, I want to take the credit for it. If you're going to get the credit for it, I don't want to stand there. I don't want to be with you. I'm not going to help you. I don't want to help you do this. The partisan politics in this country has destroyed the protection of the people. This has destroyed the sovereignty of our nation. This has destroyed the integrity of the judicial system, of executing the laws. Whether the laws are moral or not, whether the laws are justified or not, there's a fundamental issue when people are openly advocating against the system itself, on absolutely insipid partisan lines. If you want to take a stance against something and you're in power, stop taking the stance and take some action. If you want a border wall and you've been advocating for it, and then now that your party is no longer in there, you want to call other people racist or saying they're dog whistling to white supremacists, you're an absolute fool and you're an absolute idiot, and I couldn't wish you a quicker farewell. I hope that you leave politics entirely, because what we need in this country are people that are standing up on their principles, on their values, and they can stand there and they, regardless of who's in power, regardless of which party owns or runs the House, regardless of which party runs the Senate, and whoever is sitting in the Oval Office can say, this was my value last year, this is my value this year, this is going to be my value next year. They need to stand up for this. So what we're going to see is the president's going to talk, and you're going to see nothing but partisan hatred coming out, where you're going to see Republicans saying the Democrats just want open borders. You're going to see the Democrats say that it's just all about racism. There is a truth behind the idea that the nation needs to be protected and needs to be sovereign. Does that mean it needs to be a wall? Maybe not. I disagree with the wall, but I understand the fundamental value there. I understand the purpose of it. We need to be doing something, okay? That means a conversation, not saying, I don't want to talk to him because he's a liar, because he's dishonest. When you have an opportunity to talk to somebody, and you both are elected, and you're going to be there for years, right? The next 2 years, right? Nancy Pelosi is going to have to work with the president, who's also going to have to work with Mitch McConnell. You can't just say, I'm not going to work with them, I can't trust them, I don't like them. Then you're an ineffective leader, and I hope I can't bid you farewell soon enough. Huge issue there. So the partisanship is stupid. Nonetheless, the media is going to shoot itself in its own foot. Trump is going to come out and talk. It's going to be at 9 p.m., so make sure you guys tune in for that. It'll be interesting, as always. And here's the other stupid thing. Here's because we don't have enough stupidity in this country right now. So historically, and by the trend, if a president makes a short announcement or a short speech to the country from the Oval Office, which is what is being projected as tonight, historically, the opposition party does not take the equal time. Now, if they address the nation, such as like the State of the Union, they would have that opportunity, and that would be a normal thing. What Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer both said in unison, basically, was that they need to be given immediate, equal airtime. So it's this beautiful idea that Democrats have been talking about for a long time, and that is equal outcome. I may not have been deserving of the same outcome. I may not, there may not be a precedent there for me, but I demand, you will give me equal airtime after the fact. You will change up the ways of everything because I have things to say too. How stupid. I don't care if you're a Republican and the Democrats are doing it. If you think that this is just your time to take the spotlight and go, this guy is just terrible. I don't care. I don't care. I hope that you guys don't care either. If you guys, how many people right now think that it would be difficult for Nancy Pelosi or Chuck Schumer to go to any media, to go to Fox News, to go to CNN, to go to anyone and say, I would like to do an interview with you guys. I want you guys to interview me and I want you guys to talk to me about this. Do you think that any of them would say no? Do you think that any of them would say no? Of course not. What they are doing is they're openly just trying to ask for equality of outcome. So, and to quote them, now that the television networks have decided to air the president's address, which, if his past statements are any indication, will be full of malice and misinformation, Democrats must immediately be given equal airtime. So this is coming from Nancy Pelosi, who, when talking to Department of Homeland Security, says, I don't accept your facts. So when she was giving the statistics on numbers of illegal immigrants that were caught, that were violent, that had criminal histories, that were affiliated with gangs, that had been involved with heinous crimes, she says, I don't believe your facts. I don't believe you. So I'm just going to wash it away. I'm going to take it with a grain of salt. Not important to me. I don't have to listen to you. But they want to say that everything that the president says or that anyone says that are in favor of him must be full of malice and misinformation. It is completely disingenuous. If you're not willing to listen to the other side, there's no reason why the country should be listening to you. And certainly I can hold President Trump accountable for the same thing, right? He will do the same thing. He will say, look, they're full of nothing but lies and slander and everything else. We've seen it. We've seen him do this in the past, and I'm not going to be a partisan hack on this. It happens on both sides of the road, and they're just. Can we just have honesty again? Can we just have people that actually want? Can we actually have politicians that actually care about the nerdiness of politics to be able to actually to debate these things instead of going, ew, I don't want to talk to them. Stop it. Stop trying to be entitled little I don't even have a good, nice term to use. Stop being entitled little brats. There we go. There's a nice PC word. Stop being an entitled little brat and thinking that you deserve something because somebody else is doing something. Can we have that? Because what if when the Democrats do this, right? So the networks give Nancy Pelosi and Chuck Schumer the airtime. Now we'll have Mitch McConnell. Mitch McConnell will be like, I need equal airtime. Now Mitch McConnell gets it. Now then you get the head of the Judiciary Committee. He goes, I need the equal airtime. And then you're just going to have everyone going, I need the equal. I need the equal. And it's just like, what about the American citizens? Can the American citizens get some airtime? Can we go up there and talk? Can we address the nation? Eventually we have to stop with the stupidity. Stop with the, take care of me. Take care of me. Take care of me. Stop it. Horrible. You guys can see my my chat is still frozen and I haven't been able to tune in to see what you guys are saying. I apologize for that. Thank you, Joel Daniel Valdez, for the super hearts. Always appreciate those. You deserve airtime more so than them. I appreciate that so much. Thank you. But it's we're diving down deeper into a dark hole. And that is when politics fails us, when the government fails us, and they've been failing us for a while now, and they continue to fail us, and they continue to get bigger, and we continue to see people advocate for them to get bigger, much like Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. Thankfully, I tagged her for this. When we see them continue to advocate for bigger government, all they're doing is just guaranteeing a worse catastrophic apocalypse when the government ends, right? When the government is so intrinsically involved with the poor, when they're so involved in so many different markets and they make themselves a monopoly on these different fields, and then they fail to do it, right? Now we're going to have a snap of the markets, and the markets go, we have to take care of these people, and there's no one already there. That lapse is going to be catastrophic. And the more that they get involved, right? If government gets involved with the Medicare for all and they start running healthcare, right? Imagine what happens when they're not guaranteed that money, right? That lapse in time is going to be catastrophic for people. But nobody cares. Nobody cares about tomorrow. They only care about today. It is a huge fundamental issue, right? As a nation, when we are $22 trillion in debt, maybe, just maybe, we should start caring about the debt a little bit. Maybe we should stop spending so much, so we don't have they don't have to take so much in revenue. We can start cutting back. Stop sending stuff to other countries. Stop sending our money, our taxpayer money, to other countries. Foreign aid is not needed. Stop the foreign wars. Stop spending the money on all these foreign wars that really are insignificant in the grand scheme of things. Let's stop spending money subsidizing our farmers. Stop subsidizing all these different markets. Government was never in the role to subsidize. It was never one of the ideas that was, when the founders were created, they were like, we need these guys to prop up these markets. Get rid of it. And if you guys want a good quick read or a good quick listen, go onto YouTube and type in "It's Not Yours to Give." This was a discussion that was held to then Congressperson Davy Crockett, and is a beautiful and elaborate way to explain how providing from one, the taxpayer, to providing to others who may be deemed in need is not only unethical, but is unconstitutional. So if members of Congress want to provide for people, they can do it out of their own paycheck. And I know that Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez has not donated her paycheck, so she has plenty of money in order to donate to others, much like what she said others should be doing until the actual shutdown affected her pay as well. It needs to... This socialism of our government needs to end. We need to be more reliant on ourselves, and that means they need to step out before they get torn down from overspending and not being able to collect enough revenue, and then somebody eventually calls in their dues. It's going to be catastrophic, and I'm fighting against this. I hope you guys will be fighting against this as well, because this is going to be a big issue. This is going to be a huge ordeal, and with the economic crash that is going to happen, and it's not just going to be in America, but really genuinely going to affect the world. When this happens, we're not going to be on the better side of things. We are not going to be on the better side of things. So watch out. People are going to be advocating for a New Deal. They're going to be advocating for even more socialism, for universal basic income, for taking care of people, and it's just going to make it more difficult. It's going to make the growth more lethargic, and it's going to make it more catastrophic when it happens again. So there's many issues that are going on out there, and I just hope that I'm able to open up the eyes of at least one person out there. If I can open up one person's eyes, and they can open up one person's eyes, we can slowly change the minds of everyone to understanding that the government cannot provide anything better, higher quality, or cheaper than what the free market would already do on its own, given competition, given the availability of competition. Because competition is what's going to make the consumers better in the long run. It's going to make you happier. It's going to give you a better quality good at a cheaper cost, because they have to compete against others. But when a government gives you a monopoly, and they are the only ones providing it, they don't care. They don't care about how much it costs. They really genuinely don't, because it's not their money. But when you care, you're going to want the highest quality stuff. You're going to want it. I promise you. You don't go to a car, you don't go to buy a car and you're like, first place I want to look, I've got some money saved up for this. I've been smart, I've been responsible, I saved up some money, I'm going to go buy a car. I've got 10 G's in the bank right now. I'm going to go buy a car. The first place you'd go to is not the junkyard and go, you got a car for like $200? You got a car for like $300? No, you go and you get a car within your means, and you go and get a car that's going to be reliable, that's going to give you the quality that you need, maybe get some good gas mileage, because you don't know how volatile the gas is going to be over time. You want to get something with low mileage, so that way you know it's going to last a while. and have a good warranty on it. These are all things that you're going to want to do because it's with your money, right? Now, if the government's like, hey, we're going to buy you a car, we're going to give you like $500 a year, you can go buy a car. All you need to do is find a car that's $500 that's going to last you 1 year. That's all you got to do. You don't care anymore. As long as that car can get you from point A to point B and you can get money for it, you don't care. And the government doesn't care because they're like, look at that. I gave people a car. It's so fantastic. You have a car and you can get to places. I'm such a giving God. It's not in your best interest. I promise you. I promise you. I promise you. I've read way too much. I've read way too much in understanding this stuff. And you maybe you guys call me a conspiracy. Maybe you guys just think I'm too deep into the roots of libertarianism. But the government cannot provide anything better to you than you couldn't have provided for yourself. It really can't. So with that, guys, I hope that you guys enjoyed your night. I hope you guys enjoyed your Tuesday. Hopefully the Mondays didn't hit you too hard. But nonetheless, I will see you guys this Friday night, 7 p.m. Eastern. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon. I want to thank you guys once again for coming in tonight, for sharing this out, for getting your friends and family involved, because it's important we get educated and understand the principles that is individual liberty over the collective needs. And that, sadly, is the way that this nation is moving towards those collective needs. So have a great night, and I'll see you guys on Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern. Have a great night, and I'll see you guys then. I am Mr. Merca, the Bearded Truth, Jason Lyon.